Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, everyone. Fantasy Life right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. And we are so excited to have you back here with us on this Monday. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you. Going through, we've got a great show today, Adam. We've got preseason games that we get to react to, maybe a few overreactions if we can. We're really diving into ADPs right now, talking through Guillotine leagues that you should all go and sign up for at guillotineleagues.com. And yeah, it's going to be a great day. How you doing? How's it going?
Well, if I'm going to be
Ah,
honest with you, it's
I'm
kind of
sorry.
depressing right now, but we have fantasy football and a lot of players that I have drafted perform well this week. And not that it matters, but basically got them at good prices where I know they're going to rise now. But yeah, just trying to stay positive here. Got fantasy football drafts ahead because my baseball team is very depressing right now.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it though. It sounded like it was just, it's because of me, we had a rift or something, but no, it's your Mets are really just truly bad. It's bad.
Yeah,
There's no
so
way around it.
they are just finding ways to lose. And we're going to do the opposite here. We're going to do everything we can to find ways to win in fantasy football.
Yes. There we go. See, look, spin it into a positive. Your Mets are bad. CD Lamb gets run over
By
over the
her.
weekend by a ref. That was obviously you saw the video. I mean, that
Yes.
was like not something that was crazy. And then he gets a flag thrown on him, which was probably the worst part. Insult to injury.
Yeah, that's probably a sign of things to come for this season with the Cowboys. Again, you want to be positive at the beginning of the season, have optimism. We all start 0-0, but I think we know how this is going to end up for the
Ugh,
Cowboys this
I
year.
think it
But
was a
hey,
sign.
we need CeeDee Lamb healthy for fantasy. That's the one thing when it comes to the Cowboys for fantasy football. There's a lot to like there. But from a real life perspective, when it comes to wins and losses, not feeling great.
Maybe it's a sign of things to come. I hope not, though. Maybe you need to. Here's the thing. This is what we were talking about before the show started. You need to go to a Mets game, get the cookie bucket, and then just sit there and bring good vibes. I think you need to just eat cookies in your section, pass out some cookies, and then the Mets will be fine. And if not, you can join the Seattle Mariners bandwagon, and
Yeah,
I'll let you on.
your Mariners looking really good. They're in good shape right
Oh, I
now. And
know.
they play my Mets this week, and that's going to be fun.
Hey,
Run into like
should we put a
a
little
hot
bet
team.
on this?
No, I am not putting
What?
any money on the Mets right now, unless
Come
I'll
on.
bet them to lose at this point because
No,
I know it's going to
no.
happen.
Come on, the one time I'm like
No,
confident and
no
ready for
way.
it.
Look, I am
Ah,
smart when it comes to betting most of
whatever.
the time, but I've said it. You can't bet with your heart, okay? I am not putting any money on that team right now,
Lame,
so not betting
lame.
it.
This was my one time, Adam. Fine, that's fine. It's fine. The Mariners do look good. Like I said, the invitation is open for a Mariners bandwagon. You can join us while we go, hopefully deep into the playoffs. But I am also not getting my hopes up, Adam. So here we are. But at least we have fantasy football, and we have our fantasy football drafts to distract us from how bad the Mets are playing, and from CeeDee Lamb getting run over on the sideline by a ref. We've got all of that right now. You've got a draft tonight too, by the way. I'm excited to see how that ends up. We talked about this last week, but it's the Beat Adam Ronis League. No spots, I believe, no spots open.
No, there's still some spots
Oh,
open,
really?
so for
Oh,
those who
should
want to
I should
join,
I go in there?
you should.
Okay.
But
Ooh,
yeah,
that'd be
it's
fun.
playffwc.com if you want to join. Just look for the Beat Adam Ronis League tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. So there are a couple listeners in the league.
Ooh,
Yeah, so that's gonna be
that'll be
fun as
fun.
they.
Everyone go download Adam Ronis's rankings. No one let this man take a Mecca Egbuka, and we can just start his week off even worse than the Mets have given him.
Yeah, that's the thing. Look, when you are doing these drafts and people are listening and reading your content, there's nothing you can do. But I always say, okay, yeah, we talk certain guys up, and that's who we like. There's always another option, and you
For
have to be
sure.
prepared, especially when you're playing in very competitive leagues. It's the same way when you play in a high stakes league. Almost everyone in that room is pretty sharp, and you just don't get value. So you have to be a little bit more aggressive in the middle to late rounds. You'll see guys get pushed up. I saw a draft over the weekend. TreVeyon Henderson went in the second round of a high
Wow,
stakes league. Yeah.
really
Yes.
interesting. Because he's going in the fourth.
Typically, yeah.
No.
I mean,
Well,
fifth, and
depends
then
on
he's
where you're
probably moved
looking.
to the fourth
Fifth.
a little bit.
Yeah. Wow.
But we know people will overreact to the preseason. Like a lot of times, oh, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. It seems now more than ever, there's so much more attention to it. You see videos and people tweeting about it all over social media, and it does get in people's heads. People are human. They see this and they're like, oh, I got to get this guy. And it's like, we saw him play like 2 series. So there's going to be a lot of overreaction to it. And the key is just don't be drastic about it. And that's another example of why it is good to draft a little early. You get those guys at, I don't want to say a discount, but maybe the proper value.
Yeah.
You could have gotten those guys fifth, sixth round, and now they're going to move up a couple rounds, and you might be priced out.
And I think that's why it's also important. I was on a podcast over the weekend and it was like best, what are our best tips and tricks during fantasy drafts? And we talked about this. We have talked about this before, but ADP is a guide and you don't necessarily have to you don't have to follow it to a T. If you have a guy like our example, it feels like this whole offseason right now is going to be a Meke Buka or a TreVeyon Henderson. And you're saying to yourself, wow, I really like this guy, but on ESPN, for example, the ADP, this would be a round or two early. We're not saying, like you said, go crazy. But if you have guys that you like and you want to go, I got a message from someone over the weekend about an auction draft and how much, you should be willing to spend, which does get a little bit different when we're talking about a $200 budget. But it's like, yes, if you really like these guys and believe in them, ADP is a guide and you shouldn't wait necessarily to go and get them because most of the time, especially for guys that are really coming up and trending upwards after these preseason games, they're going to get more expensive. So you can set that trend because if you're not doing it, someone else is probably going to do it. So it's a guide, and sometimes you can wait. You do have the ability to wait, but for guys that are really showing out in preseason that are getting a lot of love right now, you'll probably want to be the one that sets those expectations and take them a round or two early. It's okay.
ADP is a guide by the market. The market is often wrong. Now, you don't want to be extreme. Maybe there's a player in round 12 you love. We're not saying take him in the sixth round,
No.
right? You have to have an idea of what the market is. But a lot of times, again, it is wrong. But there's also the preseason hype where these players move up and wound up doing nothing. So
Hmm.
you got to figure out like who are the real players that are going to produce that deserve the helium and who is just moving up based on one play or something we saw in the preseason. I mean, now we got snap counts and everything, and it's like I think there's a little overreaction to this. Like they're trying to get a gauge of what players can do. They might be putting them in different situations. Like the snap
Hmm.
counts in the preseason can be a little misleading sometimes.
Definitely. And that's why we have to take the whole body of work, right? We are not we are going to talk because there are reactions that we have to this preseason over the weekend, but we have to take this preseason as a whole. And so by the end of it, we'll have a much clearer view of what, is this really going to be a rotation for the Jets? How good does TreVeyon Henderson look, RJ Harvey? So what we get over the weekend, yes, of course we're going to take those because it feels like breadcrumbs, Adam, that are going to eventually lead us to what we can hopefully expect for the season. But you always have to take it with, a grain of salt right now, especially because things can change. I mean, like maybe not the best example, but Daniel Jones is getting the start next week, but we're going to see Anthony Richardson again. They're putting him back out there. They announced that today. So it's just one of those things where we can overreact a little bit, but just be careful when you're in those draft rooms, unless it's like I said, those guys that you like. And it really, when you're taking them ahead of ADP, one or two rounds, like you said, don't go round 16 and you're taking them, at round 8. That's not what we're necessarily saying. But go and get your guys and have fun. Maybe I'll join. Now I want to join that draft today. Make sure you don't get a Meke Buka though. That could be fun. That could be fun.
Like
That's all I'm paying
it's
for.
fine. Like see, that's the thing. People think like they're bothering you or making you mad because of that. There's always someone else to be taken. Again, if people want to overpay for players, go ahead. Like that's fine. Like if I was in that draft and I saw Henderson go round 2, I'd be like, okay, cool. Yeah, I've been drafting him. He's on the
Hmm.
radar. But now when you take him in round 2, you need him to hit his ceiling, and you're pushing another good player down the draft board. So you want to go crazy and aggressive. I'm trying to remember who. There's always several players every preseason that get a lot of push and then wind up doing nothing in the regular season.
You're trying to think of who's doing that right now.
No, I'm trying to think who it was last year. It's so long ago, I forget.
I know. I was gonna say, man, who would one of them have been? We should remember this by now.
It's just so long ago. We're so
It
wrapped up
is.
in the moment. So
It is a long time ago. But our listeners will remind us though, at K Valenzuela 17 at Adam Ronis, because I can't think right now of one.
there's always that preseason
There
darling
is.
that gets a lot of hype that moves up and they wind up doing nothing.
Yeah. I think right now, well, we'll talk about it because there are things to go through from the preseason because on our ADP tool at fantasylife.com, we did a cool upgrade so you can see the risers and fallers in the past week. So it's interesting, like Keenan Allen's moved up, of course, since he lands on a team, but 50 spots now. Again, not crazy wildly expensive at 148, but Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt is someone we've talked about as a late round sleeper. Man, he is also, again, you're going to hear an ADP, an average draft position of 176, and be like, that's not expensive. And I get it, but moving up like 35 spots since we've started talking about him, but we've mentioned him as a late round flyer. He's getting a lot of love. Keaton Mitchell, who we talked about last week, he's a big mover. Yeah, you just got to be careful with the hype.
So Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, I took in the Scott Fishbowl. That draft
Okay.
was in July. I got him in round 19 as the 72nd running back off the board.
Wow. Wow.
Those
That's
days
good.
are finished. So
Yeah, you can't get him again. Sorry.
that's the one good thing about drafting early. You get some guys that are not on the radar yet that are values, and we still don't even know if it's going to work out, but I've seen him start to move up to like round 11, round
Yeah.
12. So it's true. Like all these players will move up based on positive camp reports, something we see in the preseason. And, that's why it's always good to kind of spread out your drafts. And everyone, or most people, want to have their drafts as close to the start of the season because of injuries. And yeah, that is a factor. And we saw a few injuries over the weekend. It's going to happen. That's going to happen week one. You could draft Wednesday before that Thursday night game, and someone can get hurt the next day. So
Yeah.
there's no perfect time. But if you do play in a large amount of leagues, it is good to kind of get a couple drafts, whether it's mid July, late July, even early August, even now. I went back and looked in the past, and I like doing some of these, like the draft I'm doing tonight. I like doing it early August
Yeah.
because there are still going to be players that will move up over the next couple weeks, even with only 2 preseason games left, and we probably won't see many starters in that third preseason game. But you will see more players move up. It really is wild how these ADPs shift in a span of 2 weeks.
And like I said, we're going to go through all the training camp news, all the preseason news and notes as well to know, which guys we're comfortable with going and getting that are moving up with their ADPs right now, and which guys we're kind of like, this might be a little bit of smoke here, and we don't necessarily want to go with them. So you mentioned some of the injuries that happened over the weekend, Adam. I think big one for us because we've talked so much about Tyjae Spears. I think that's the one we have to lead with. Unfortunately, looks like Brian Callahan did say that Tyjae Spears will miss a few weeks with a high ankle sprain. They're hoping that he gets back before week one, but we know what these high ankle sprains mean, especially for running backs, Adam. It's never a good sign. So he unfortunately exited Saturday's preseason game against Tampa on a cart. He had like 12 yards in that game, 4 touches, I believe it was, but high ankle sprain. And that's just really unfortunate. And it has to make a shift now because we thought, 1A, 1B situation, or Adam, I know we've said this before too with Tyjae Spears, Tony Pollard. If one goes down, the other's going to get a good workload. So it's still early in the season. Hopefully he is back. But for Tony Pollard drafters right now, we never want injuries. But I mean, he is the guy in this backfield.
Yeah, and he's fallen a little bit in some drafts. It feels like people are hesitant to take him. I've said I'm willing to draft both backs from this backfield. It really just depends on where I'm drafting. I did get Tony Pollard in the Scott Fishbowl. I did get Tyjae Spears in the Flex League draft, and I think in the Sirius XM Host League draft as well. So
Nice.
I was willing to take both. Well, I don't know if it's nice right now.
Wow.
We'll see what this injury. But I think you are right. These high ankle sprains, sometimes you come back too soon. And last year, going into the season with Pollard and Spears, there was talk that it would be close between the two. And then Spears got banged up early in the season. Pollard was very solid with his big workload. Then Pollard was banged up, didn't practice much of the year towards the second half. He missed a week. Spears went in there, was really good. So the offensive line has improved. You got Cam Ward in there. So I think there's some intrigue with this backfield. But for now, you'll probably see Pollard move up a little bit, maybe around.
Yeah.
Looking at his ADP on our draft tool on Fantasy Life, you could see ESPN 100.2. We keep going over. They just have some really wild ADP.
They do.
Sleeper 73.3. Looks like the highest is 64.9 on Yahoo. So you might see him move up a little bit because at least to begin the year, if Spears is limited or out, Pollard will get that big workload. But Spears, it's not like he's out for the season, even if he misses
No.
the beginning. But he'll move down though. So
But he could start slow. I
yeah,
mean,
he could.
we know these high ankle sprains. Those aren't necessarily things that we're like, oh, okay, everything's going to be great because those have been in the past when we've looked tricky to recover from. So I understand if people are downgrading Spears a little bit because of a potential slow start. And like you said, I mean, Tony Pollard, if Spears were to miss time, type of significant time, then he obviously sees a fantasy boost early in the year. But if you're drafting or have drafted already, like you said, I've definitely drafted Tyjae Spears over these last couple of months. So it's like a hang on situation and hope that he's good to go for week one. But don't necessarily panic right now. But it's not a great way to start the season for him. And then the last one I want to make sure we get to here at the top of the hour, top of the show is Jayden Reed in a walking boot going into preseason. So Matt LaFleur did say that Jayden Reed could potentially miss week one. That was the quote after their game over there on Saturday. So again, not a great way to start things off with Jayden Reed. He missed practice on Thursday, wore a walking boot on his left foot during Saturday's game, and then he said Matt LaFleur said the injury is not related to the toe issue that had him on the NFI list to open camp. But he said that is always a quote concern when a player needs a boot. So Matthew Golden to the moon. I don't know. We don't want to overreact to this, but again, seeing Jayden Reed here when this team already has a ton of mouths to feed. We've talked a lot about Matthew Golden and who you should take ahead of. If it should be Matthew Golden or if it should be Jayden Reed. So, what was your reaction to seeing him like that?
Yeah, I've been more on Golden. Don't have a lot of him, but I don't have any Jayden Reed. The one thing that with Jayden Reed is we just haven't seen him on the field in two wide sets. So you can still have success. We've seen other receivers do that, but especially on a team that spreads the ball around, it's kind of difficult. And we do expect the Packers passing game to bounce back. Jordan Love last year was limited by the injury. And if you just look at the way his passes decreased from his rookie year, it was obvious. They just said, yeah, he's not 100%. He's trying to play through this. We're going to just have to rely on the run more. I do see them increasing the passes this year, but it
Yeah.
is concerning. Again, I always say this. It really comes down to roster construction because once you take one player that is injured or suspended going into the year, it's really difficult to take another one. And that's why I hate the top 200, top 300 list, because if someone just respects your opinion and blindly drafts by it, they could wind up with a team with Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison, Brandon Ayuk. Like, that is bad. That is
Yeah.
you don't want to go into, like, we want to play for the middle of the season and the end of the season because again, it's a 17-week season. It's a long season. So you can't just say, oh, I'm worried about week one, week two, week three. We want to play for the long haul, but you also have to be realistic that you need to get to week 15. You need to get to the fantasy playoffs. And if you have all of these guys already dealing with issues, because you're going to get more injuries week one.
You
We
are.
don't, we won't want it to happen. It's going to happen. So if you already have like three guys on your roster who can't play or suspended, and then you go into week one and you get two more guys hurt. Now you're like, oh, okay, I got to cut these guys. So it all comes down to roster construction. But yeah, Jayden Reed is likely, you'll probably see him fall a little bit. But again, there is the possibility he's ready week one, week two. I think LaFleur said, oh, I had the quote. He didn't say he's going to miss week one, but he basically sounded like there's a chance Reed doesn't play
Potentially.
week one. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully we get him back before the regular season, I think was the quote there. But Listen, it's all about, we're comfortable taking risks. And if guys fall to a certain point, we've all been there. We say, hey, I can't let this guy slide past me anymore, whether it's, coming off the injuries or questionable, if they're in a questionable offense. But for, Matthew Golden, you mentioned it. He was on the field in those two wide receiver sets, had 100% route participation, 20% target share. Again, small sample size because we're talking about preseason games, the first week of them. But I think, when we've talked about him before, that low end wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 1 upside, I think that's what we're looking at right now. So we'll just have to wait and see with Jayden Reed. I took him in a in the stacked league before obviously all this happened. So, now and I continue with that draft and have to get, probably a couple more wide receivers than I was expecting, just in case that isn't good to go for him for week 1. We're going to continue talking through preseason and what we saw over those last couple of games that we saw over the weekend. But first, it's ADP battle time, Adam. I've seen a ton of questions. RJ Harvey or TreVeyon Henderson. What are we expecting for Jaxson Smith-Njigba, Lad McConkey? We're going through guys that are close in ADPs, who we would rather have right now in this moment. We're going to give you those names here coming up next. Happy Monday, everyone. Appreciate you all hanging out with us right here. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, getting you ready for all things fantasy football drafts, getting you ready for all the preseason overreactions, Adam, and what we want to believe and what we don't. As always, make sure you guys are heading over to fantasylife.com. Use that code SXM20. Gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 subscription from all of the articles we talk about, all of the tools that we use. Those are all at fantasylife.com. So make sure you're heading over there. Want to talk ADP battle. Oh, and by the way, pay your league dues. I did this morning, Adam. I just wanted to put it out there. There was no way I was coming on this show when our league dues were due today. What time? Noon Eastern?
Yeah,
11
noon
a.m.?
Eastern for our Greenwich Street Tavern League. So
I
it's
was
two
not gonna
league.
let Adam, talk trash about me on the radio, saying, "Oh, look, you don't have your league dues in." So just a reminder to everyone, pay your league dues.
Yeah, so that's 2 leagues at 12. In our league, I'm waiting on 2, and I think the other league was 3 or 4. So
Okay.
I'll send another reminder today. But
Not
yeah,
me.
the those are always the two biggest things. Well, for commissioners, number one, filling the league and setting the draft date, and then collecting the money. I don't care if you don't show up draft day. Once I have the money, I could care less. You can go on auto. Someone fills in for you. I don't care. Once the money's in hand, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Perfect. Pay your league dues, everyone. Just do it. Don't put it off to the last minute, like maybe me. But I did it, and I got it in before the time slot there. So I love it. Let's talk ADP battles here, Adam. I tried to go with guys that are obviously getting a lot of buzz, whether it's training camp right now or just expectations that they have going into the 2025 season. Tried to make them close enough where maybe some people, depending on where they're drafting from, do have a choice. Hey, do I want to get RJ Harvey or TreVeyon Henderson right now? So I do want to start with those two. TreVeyon Henderson is going to be going in the 5th round right now. And then I believe RJ Harvey going in the 6th round of most drafts. So again, close enough where I just want to talk about them and their expectations. Obviously, both rookies coming in to situations that we were like, okay, this could work. And we can start with RJ Harvey here because, there were some reports that J.K. Dobbins was going to have a lot more work early on, and we should limit our expectations with him. But I don't know. I still look at his resume when he was at UCF, and we are expecting him to catch some passes over there in that backfield. We know he averaged 20 receptions, over 200 receiving yards per season when he was in college. And then in Denver, like I said, Jaleel McLaughlin had an expanded role in 2024. Javonte Williams was never able to really get things going over there as the lead early down option. So I'm still loving the potential with RJ Harvey, but if I asked you Harvey versus Henderson, who would you straight up be going with right now?
I would go Henderson, and I like both guys. I definitely have drafted both guys and plan to. With Harvey, we did see a lot of J.K. Dobbins on 3rd down and passing situations, and that might be at the beginning of the season until Harvey gets acclimated and becomes a better pass blocker. But we did see Harvey a lot with the first team. So I think that's the one thing that you are a little worried about with Harvey. But again, the talent fits the system. He's got that speed, so I'm not concerned long term. So don't worry about that if you see Dobbins a lot early in the year. And TreVeyon Henderson obviously showed his explosive ability with
Yeah.
that kickoff return, 100 yards for a touchdown. He's got the speed, he's got the juice. That's one thing that the Patriots were lacking last year, some speed in that offense. Henderson brings it. You'll still see Ramondre Stevenson, but Henderson's going to be heavily involved, especially in the pass game. They said he's a great pass blocker, so he's explosive. And I do think this Patriots offense is much improved. So I lean Henderson here over Harvey, but I'll be hoping to draft both. But
Happy to
again,
take both. Yeah.
like I said, the Henderson price tag, very interested to see where he goes in my draft tonight. I saw him go in the second round of a high stakes league over the
Yeah.
weekend. So
Wow.
yeah,
Listen, we say go get your guys, so we can't,
yeah, second round
second
though.
round after he's usually, what did I say, the fifth round? That might be a little bit of a reach, but hey, whatever. It's not my money I'm playing with.
Well, yeah, looking at the ADP tool, so Underdog 53.6, RT Sports 51.8, but Yahoo 77.4.
See 77. I'm gonna take him every
Oh,
single
but that's
time.
it's not, see, that's the thing, it's not going to happen in our leagues and very competitive leagues. So,
No, but I think
home leagues are wild. Home leagues really vary.
that's
So,
why I said the home leagues that I like, my friends, that's probably one of the hardest drafts I do all year because I just I
it,
don't know what's
y-
coming.
yes, that's an
I just
excellent
have no
point. It's
idea
true.
what's going on
It's
with
very unpredictable because
it
you're
is.
so used to drafting. So underdog, you pretty much know the ADPs, these best balls, DraftKings, and then when you get in industry leagues, okay, people have been talking these guys up. You know they're pretty sharp. Guys are going
Yeah,
to go a little bit higher. Yeah, these home leagues sometimes are very
they
unpredictable.
get
Like I have a
crazy.
few sharp people in mind, and then others I just have no idea what they're going to do.
Oh, a wild card. But I'm with you. I've taken more TreVeyon Henderson, but to be totally honest, Adam, I could see myself, depending on we might see a price flip where people are nervous about J.K. Dobbins or just nervous enough where, the price goes down a little bit more for R.J. Harvey. And I could see myself, having maybe a little bit more R.J. Harvey, depending on how expensive Henderson gets towards the end of draft season. But I do like both. TreVeyon Henderson, like you say, the Patriots have lacked that big play kind of guy, and that's what TreVeyon Henderson brings to this team is that potential. He had 17% of his attempts go for 10 plus yards at Ohio State, and again, people are worried about Ramondre Stevenson. I understand that because right now it is projected for a split workload, but it looks like TreVeyon Henderson, because of his profile, you might see a split workload. He might not necessarily have to do much for him to pay off for fantasy football, to go crazy. So I think that's one where it's a fun one to look at because those guys are so close. What if I gave you Jaxson Smith and Jigba versus Lad McConkey when we're just specifically talking ADP battles? Because those two are other guys where we say, yeah, they're going pretty close together. Depending on where you're looking, Lad McConkey is around pick 20. Ooh, 20. Yeah, 20. I want to say in the 20s. He's going pick 33 on ESPN, which I think is a little bit of a difference there. JSN is one where he kind of goes pick 33 on Underdog, 28 on Sleeper, 30 on RT Sports. So Lad McConkey is obviously the guy that goes earlier, but between the two, what are your expectations? Do you like Lad McConkey more there in that situation?
Yeah, I lean McConkey here. I know Keenan Allen coming in. They did say that McConkey is going to remain in the slot, so that's good for him. I think McConkey, even on the outside, could win. But yeah, I still lean him. I think he's going to get a lot of targets with JSN. I like him too. There is a different offense, different offensive coordinator, different quarterback. He still looks to be the guy that's going to get the bulk of the targets there, even if they become, as we expect, focused more on the run and feature that. But I do lean McConkey. I have said, though, the one concern you have with him is he's always dealt with injuries going back to
Mm.
his college career. Last year, I don't think he missed a game, but he did have a few injuries. I think he played all 17, right?
I
Looking real
think you're
quick.
right. I can look.
But yeah, he does get banged up, and we talked about he played 16, so he missed one. And then he was not practicing for a bit, and it looks like he's fine. He didn't play in the preseason game yesterday, but it looks like he'll be back on the practice field. But he does get banged up quite a bit, so it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, we've kind of talked about, expectations for him, but he was able to really break out in 2024, led all the Seahawks basically last season in all the major receiving categories as well. You look at targets, you look at target rate, everything looked good. And DK Metcalf obviously is out of the picture now. You've got Tyler Lockett out of the picture now. I think it's more just questions of Sam Darnold, and maybe it's one of these things, Adam, where you don't have to necessarily be too worried because of the targets that we're expecting him to go and get. I'm just being overly critical of Sam Darnold as a Seattle Seahawks fan, but Jackson Smith-Njigba going in the, I want to say, the back half of the third round, so he's going right towards the end there, where it's Mike Evans, it's Devontae Adams, Tetairoa, McMillan is right there as well. But we kind of know what we got from JSN last season, and it was a great breakout. It's just hoping that with the transition at quarterback, with hopefully an upgraded a little bit offensive line, that he's able to kind of put up those kind of same numbers in 2025. That's what we're looking for, because we're not worried about Cup, we're not worried about Marquez Valdez Scantling. So it's really, I mean, it's him and everyone else.
Yeah, and I think it's just, will he be able to click with Darnold? Will he get enough targets? I think that's what some people are concerned about. But yeah, I've seen him go early third round at times. But yeah, that third round price, that's fine if you're looking for a receiver.
Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. Man, Kyler Murray over the
With that,
we're
yeah, that
trying not to
interception.
we're not trying to
He
overreact, but
did
that
bounce
looked
back,
he
but yeah.
did, but that was just one of those. I got, how many times I got sent that clip? I was like, I know Kyler Murray, we're trying not to overreact for fantasy, of course, but never a good look when you see that. So when we're talking about these two guys and their ADPs, depending on, again, of course, what platform you're looking at, Marvin Harrison Jr. is usually going pick 28. Garrett Wilson's pick 29. These two are very close. I can see this being a big situation for people in their drafts, having MHJ and Garrett Wilson right there, and they have a choice between the two, because usually T. Higgins is gone at that point, Tyreek Hill is gone at that point, Lad McConkey as well. So between the two with Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., are you leaning any direction?
Yeah, I'm leaning Garrett Wilson here. I get it. There's a lot of concern because you could look and say, well, Garrett Wilson's going to get a ton of targets, and you could look at his career, and he has. And it hasn't really translated to huge fantasy seasons for him. But they really don't have anyone else in this offense. It's going to be a lot of Garrett Wilson. When Aaron Glenn first took over the job, he said, we're going to get the ball to Garrett Wilson as much as possible. Then Justin Fields, we heard all the bad practice numbers, and then he went out in the game and looked better. But yeah, I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. And the key for him is the touchdowns. He had 7 last year, which was a career high, but he had just 7 in his first 2 seasons. The targets have always been there. He's gotten us 1,000 yards. So I do think Fields will be fixated on him. And we did see DJ Moore have that big season with Fields. So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I've drafted both. I will say that, but I do still like Garrett Wilson as an option over there as well. You and I are both believing that Justin Fields is going to hopefully take a step forward, and that doesn't necessarily means that he becomes overnight this amazing, incredible passer. But like you said, Garrett Wilson, when we've seen him, he's got the talent to be able to kind of overcome that, and hopefully he's going to get the targets, which is what we really, the targets and the volume are what we really want. We have him projected for 130 targets for 2025, and that includes touchdowns are low though, and I'm curious if Dwayne or Matthew Friedman are going to move these, because the receiving yards are only 929, receiving touchdowns sitting at 5.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think the Vegas number for Garrett Wilson touchdowns was 4.5.
Mm.
So, like, if you like to look at those numbers and you compare Garrett Wilson to other receivers in the tier, it's going to make you say, yeah, I don't want to take Garrett Wilson. So,
Yeah, don't let it scare you off though. I think
yeah.
that's my thing. I understand if you don't necessarily like Justin Fields, then you're not gonna be in love with Garrett Wilson. There's a strong correlation between quarterbacks like that
But
and kind of
don't you
fading their
still,
receivers.
like, isn't there still concern for Kyler Murray, though? Like, when it
Oh,
comes to
for
Marvin
sure.
Harrison?
Yes, absolutely. But I think it's the fact that he's proven it before, that he's able to get it done through the air, and they're hoping that last year was the outlier, right? There it was, the chemistry was really bad. Kyler Murray wasn't 100% healthy, and we haven't seen those, prolific passing seasons from Justin Fields. We know what he's going to bring us on the ground, but I could also see the other side with the Jets, is it just being a really run heavy offense, and that could, make people fade Garrett Wilson.
Right, and but Harrison also still has to deal with McBride, who gets a ton of targets.
I think people are forgetting that McBride was the red zone target, and he still only walked away with 2 touchdowns last season, and that's probably going to change this year.
You would think. Again, McBride didn't score much in college, but you would hope that the efficiency gets better in the red zone. But yeah, I think Kyler Murray, there's still some concern with him.
Hey, we talk about question marks when we get to a certain point of the draft for some of these receivers, and we're here right now when we talk about these two. There's just
I
question
Yeah,
marks
I actually feel better
about Wilson.
about some of the receivers going around 4 and 5. Like I've
I
said
know
from
you said you wanted to skip the third round. You said I just don't want to take anyone from there. You'll just skip it.
look, when you start looking like basically wide receiver 11 to 30, is there really that massive of a gap between some of those players? I don't think so.
No. And red flags for sure. That's why you
Yes.
said you've liked drafting. I want to talk to you more about this, but it is a good point where I was looking around in drafts. But drafting in the back half this season, maybe a little bit better than taking those first five. But it just kind of depends on who you're drafting with.
Right. Look, it's always who's going to decline a Jamar Chase. It's just when you look at like that 2-3 turn, and again, that's the early portion of the draft. The draft is really one in the middle to back end anyway. But when you look at some of the builds that start off, it looks pretty good from the back half of the draft.
Yeah, because like you said, I mean, you've got some question mark receivers at the 2-3 turn with Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, whereas you've got more JSNs, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Tetairoa McMillan's on the other side. So kind of interesting things to look at there. We're going to continue on. Players we're drafting based on ADP for Guillotine leagues. Players we're looking at and targeting. We have to go through their ADPs, and if we like them for Guillotine leagues this season, we're going to go through that here coming up next. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here, talking through Guillotine leagues and their the ADPs over there, who we're targeting with the ADP breakdown presented here by Premier National Sports. So again, if you know or know someone who has a high school athlete looking to take their game to the next level, always a reminder, just like we're trying to look for those guys with the great ADPs that we're trying to get to rise to the top here, Premier National Sports is the team to help you through the process. They're a trusted recruiting and NIL resource for high school athletes and their families. So make sure you go and touch base with their team at premiernationalsports.com. Adam, we talked about Guillotine Leagues a lot here with Paul Charchian. Everyone make sure to go give him a follow and always go to guillotineleagues.com to join a league. It is a fun new way to play fantasy football, but did want to highlight the different ADPs depending on where you're looking, but from Guillotine Leagues and compared to regular fantasy ADPs, they're very different. So the one I definitely wanted to mention here, and someone that I've been taking a lot in my Guillotine League drafts has been David Montgomery. Whereas, in some leagues you look around at fantasy, he's got an ESPN ADP of 73.9, but on Guillotine Leagues, his ADP is 57.4. So Montgomery, what do we always say, Adam? We're trying to get out of week one. It's not necessarily you have to win the whole thing. You just have to stay alive in Guillotine Leagues. So if you guys don't know, for Guillotine Leagues, you do a regular draft, but it's usually 18 teams, and it is the lowest scoring team that ends up getting chopped at the end of the week. Their players all go into the waiver wire, and you get to bid on them for the rest of the season. So for me, when I look at it, David Montgomery is a safe pick. I know that people, regular fantasy, will say, oh, well, if he goes down with an injury, that's going to be tough. He's another year older. Jahmyr Gibbs is still there. But for Guillotine Leagues in week one, this is, I feel like, a safe bet if you need a really solid running back at the time.
If you look at what he's done based on the last 2 years, then that's absolutely true. I mean, last year in a PPR format, his worst game was 7.1. And I think that was the game he got injured. So if you take that game away, his lowest output was 10 in a PPR. So doesn't sound like a lot, but we're talking a Guillotine League here, which starts with 18. So think about that, 18 teams in that league. So you want to have that high floor every week because it's not about having the most points. It's making sure you don't have the fewest so you can advance and then build your team as others are eliminated and their players go to waivers. So again, the only question I have with Montgomery is his role going to be the same? Because we are hearing with a new offensive coordinator there and Ben Johnson gone that maybe we do see a little bit more Jahmyr Gibbs, but it has worked for them the last 2 years. And if Montgomery does play a similar role or even see a little bit of a pullback, if this offense is as good and explosive, then there'll be opportunities there for him to score touchdowns. And that's
Yeah.
really where his value has been pretty big, is he's been scoring a ton of touchdowns, 25 rushing touchdowns over the last 2 years.
Jeez. And he's only finished lower than RB19 three times when you look at last season for guillotine leagues. And so that's why, we go with the safe guys. It's just one of those things where we can always tell you, Trey McBride, you're good with it. Jalen Hurts, if you can. Brian Thomas Jr. is one that I've taken in a good amount of guillotine leagues right now. Because, Adam, I've always been stuck in it's not, when I say the back half of the draft, it's not pick 12 or 11. When you're in the back half of a guillotine league draft, it's pick 18. I'm in a slow one right now and I'm pick 18, so I'll pick every week if it gets back to me, hopefully. But again, guillotineleagues.com, that is where you want to go to sign up for guillotine leagues. If you've never played, it is a fun new way to play fantasy football. I want to continue going through this though, Adam, because I've got a few more names that I don't think people will think of when they're in their guillotine league draft. So I want to mention maybe a Jacoby Myers, a tight end that people might be overlooking. We're going to go through them and their ADPs at guillotineleagues.com here coming up next. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you, talking through Guillotine League's ADP breakdown presented here by Premier National Sports. Again, going through players whose ADP is going to be very different when you're looking and drafting for Guillotine Leagues than just traditional fantasy football. Because, Adam, Guillotine Leagues is a new, different way to not only draft, but to play fantasy football. Like we said in the previous segment here, if you haven't played, go to guillotineleagues.com and sign up today. We've got paid leagues, we've got free leagues, everything that you could want over there at guillotineleagues.com. And you're just playing to not lose each and every week, because the lowest scoring team gets chopped. Their players get pushed back into waivers, and you get to bid on them with $1,000 worth of fab every single season. So that's why we like to play it safe. And I think Jacoby Myers could be a safe pick here, Adam. I'm curious what you think about Jacoby Myers, and if you potentially think he's a safe pick. But I know they added rookie receivers over there. I don't know right away if any of them are ready to challenge Jacoby Myers as like the go-to wide receiver on this team. Again, it could change halfway through the season, but we're playing to not lose. We're playing to not have the lowest score. Maybe people don't like this offense in general, though. They think that they're not going to score enough. But like I said, he has 106 and 129 targets over the last two seasons over there for Las Vegas. So again, when I'm talking safe picks here, I think Jacoby Myers could be one that I look at and say, all right, not a sexy name, but one that can keep me alive in guillotine leagues.
Yeah, in a PPR league, he certainly has a high floor. And the offense will be changing, obviously. New offensive coordinator, new coaching staff coming in. Brock Bowers is going to get his. They'll have Ashton, Jeanty, who they're going to get involved in the passing game as well. But Jacoby Myers, that guy who's been around and, yeah, should give you 4 or 5 catches a game, and not a big touchdown guy. But again, you just want the high floor in a guillotine league. So if he gets you that 8 to 12, that's going to help you survive the week. And that's what you're looking for.
Exactly. It's always fun to go over and draft over there as well, because I'll take some players that I just don't necessarily care for in regular formats. So it feels good to, draft guys that I'm like, I don't usually like them, for, Underdog or whatever, the ESPN platforms, Yahoo, wherever you're drafting. But then you come over here and you're like, okay, Evan Engram in round 7 or 6, I believe he's going right now. He's got an ADP of 80 the last time I checked. And then on CBS, he's going 110. But again, it's a guy, we can talk about Cortland Sutton and this Broncos team, but he should be a proven pass catcher for the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix. So he's another one in guillotine leagues where I'm taking him and I'm saying, okay, if I miss out on the top elite tight ends at guillotineleagues.com, I'm all right with taking Evan Engram just because of hopefully the floor that he provides you for the first few weeks.
Yeah, a lot of times when we're doing our season long leagues, we're thinking about long term. We want to have the best team for the fantasy playoffs come week 15. But in guillotine leagues, you really do have to take it week by week, because you don't want to be that first team or second team eliminated. And it is a mindset shift, and you see it. Some
It
people
is.
don't adjust well. You could see their drafts and they wonder, hey, what happened? Why did I get booted? Well, yeah, you took a bunch of rookies in your draft, and we know some of these rookies are going to take some time. So Playing it safe with some of these picks will get you past the first couple weeks. And that's the key because as teams drop, there are going to be good players on the waiver wire. And then you get those guys that you can bolster your roster with. So
Exactly.
it's definitely a different mentality. And that's why we're here. And you can check out all the articles on fantasylife.com in case, you've never played before and you are interested, do some reading here. Listen to the stuff that we talk about. Listen to Paul Charchian when he comes on. So this way you're prepared and you don't get chopped in week 1 like our buddy Ani Sridhar.
Oh, I thought you were going to say me. I was like, I did
Nah,
not get
you
chopped in
survived
week
week 1.
one.
I think you got cut
Stop.
like week 8,
No,
9, 10,
yeah, that sounds
something
about
like that.
right. It's different. Like I said, if you guys haven't played, guillotineleagues.com is where you want to go. Everything that we talk about for regular fantasy though, throw it out the window because it is totally and completely different. Like you said, Adam, the rookies you don't necessarily want to take chances on. We say, hey, take calculated risks when it comes to guys coming off injuries or older guys. Sometimes you don't want to do that here, Adam. You don't want to take a Brandon Ayuk, a Jordan Addison, a Rashee Rice who are going to give you zeros for sure for the first couple games of the season. Like you want to take no risk when it comes to guys with injuries or potential suspensions. So guillotineleagues.com, that is where you want to go. And again, premiernationalsports.com. Make sure you reach out and talk to their team over there. I'm excited because we get to talk to Solomon Wilcots here and go through Bengals preseason, more fantasy football questions here, and the water cooler coming up next. We're excited because we get to talk with Solomon Wilcots right now, and you can catch him on the Sirius XM NFL Radio Training Camp Tour this Tuesday, August 12th, with Anthony Herron visiting the Indianapolis Colts from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. Eastern. That is why we heard a little bit of an Anthony Richardson, I don't want to say highlight, maybe a low light here, but Solomon, thank you so much for joining us here. How are you doing today?
Doing great this morning. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we know that you're going to be out at the Colts training camp here tomorrow, but I'm curious for us and fantasy football fans are all wondering, what your take is on this quarterback situation for the Colts. You saw Anthony Richardson unfortunately dislocate his finger in that preseason game a couple days ago, return to practice on Saturday. Looks like he's going to be back out this weekend. Who do you think ultimately, though, wins out with this quarterback battle?
Well, I do believe there's still work to be done. There's still lots of practices and moments in the upcoming preseason games where the team is still collecting information, I think, on all three quarterbacks. Riley Leonard, he played well but did have an interception. Daniel Jones didn't play much. And what little we saw of Anthony Richardson did not look good at all. He did not see the free blitzer coming off his right side. He never saw it coming. It was a free shot on the quarterback. And then he ends up getting injured. This has kind of been the tell of the tape for him, not being able to stay on the field, not able to get the reps needed to continue to develop. So I would say right now that the book is still wide open. For me, you got to go back to the organized team activity when Daniel Jones was getting most of the reps. He's probably the leader in the clubhouse, but you still need to see more.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Tyler Warren heavily involved in that game. They obviously spent a high draft pick on him. Do you see him being the feature guy in the passing game this year?
Well, they got a lot of money spent at wide receiver, right? And Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce exploded last year. He proved that he is the vertical threat within the offense if they have a quarterback that can consistently get it to him down there. And then, look, Josh Downs is one of the best slot receivers, third down, chain movers in the game. I do believe Tyler Warren's going to be very critical. I think if they had left at the wide receiver position, he could probably rival what Brock Bowers did 1 year ago. But because they have multiple weapons, you still have Jonathan Taylor who can run it and catch it out of the backfield. I don't know that Tyler Warren's numbers will resemble him being the primary weapon, but he's capable of doing it. There is no doubt.
We're talking with Solomon Wilcots, especially excited today. And again, you can catch him at training camp for the Colts on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, he will be out with the Cincinnati Bengals. You can catch that on NFL Radio Channel 88 and the Sirius XM app. So as a former Colorado Buffalo, I have to talk with you about Shedeur Sanders because we try not to overreact to preseason games or anything like that, but he had an impressive outing. So I'm curious for you if you think that he not only, people are asking if he's going to make the team, but what does he have to do on a team that now has 5 quarterbacks rostered right now?
You just got to continue to do what you saw over the weekend. When the opportunity is, that's any rookie, particularly if you're a fifth-round pick, because you know the opportunities are going to be far and few between. Didn't get a lot of play in training camp, but you got close to the game once he was named the starter. He did get the requisite reps, and you got to seize the opportunity, and that's what every player wants, particularly if you are a rookie. Just want the opportunity to show you what I can do, and boy, did he. You could say, well, preseason games doesn't have a lot of complexity to them, not a lot of looks defensively, not a lot of blitzes, and you're right. But whatever the looks you're going to get, and whatever it is that you're asked to do, you need to be able to operate the offense, get in and out of the huddle, get up to the line of scrimmage, get the ball snapped, set guys in motion without drawing penalties or delay of games, and then get the ball out of your hands into your intended receivers, be able to turn drives into touchdowns and get it into the end zone, and he did exactly that. There's going to be another level of performance that he has to execute, but so far so good, and you like what you see so far with Shedeur Sanders.
With the Bengals, we still don't see TreVeyon Henderson out there. We saw that defense last year wasn't very good, and the Bengals were involved in a lot of shootouts. Do you see that happening again? Is the defense going to be that much of a problem that Joe Burrow and the offense are going to be forced to put up 30-plus points every single week?
That's a great question, because as good as the Bengals offense looked in that preseason game against the Eagles, the defense looked equally as bad. They allowed Tanner McKee, who looked great, by the way, the backup quarterback for the Eagles, they were able to score on 4 of their 5 offensive possessions in the first half. So if you're Al Golden, the new defensive coordinator for the Bengals, you're not happy with what you saw. You saw receivers catching the ball, and there's no contact with the receiver as soon as they make the catch. Not only were receivers making catches, but creating yards afterwards. And then you saw a gaping nearly a 40-yard run, by the Eagles' offensive running backs that I think was very alarming. So, look, the Bengals defense got a lot of work to do. It was not a good showing by the first-team guys, right? By a lot of players they expect to play during the regular season was on the field for most of those drives, and it just did not look up to par, so more work needs to be done there.
Again, talking with Solomon Wilcots here on Fantasy Life, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Travis Hunter, he's been called, the unicorn of the NFL. He's been compared to Shohei Ohtani because of the way that he's probably going to play wide receiver and cornerback this season. But realistically, with your, overall experience in the NFL, what do you envision a split with him looking like? Liam Cohen has come out and said maybe 80% at wide receivers. So for us in fantasy football, we hear that and we say, all right, well, we want a piece of that. But what are your expectations for him this season?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to have him working and really being part of the offense early on, because that is, I think, the more intricate part about what's going to be needed from him. Can you run the routes? Can you read the coverages? Can you work on your timing with the quarterback? You can sneak him in there in coverages and have him go man-to-man and expect him to jump in there and be able to play. I do think he needs more work. You saw him miss a tackle. His footwork wasn't as really good. So, look, this is the NFL. Whatever position you play requires you to put in work at it. By splitting time and dividing your labor up, that means it's taking away from maybe the other position that you could be doing more full time. So I think there's going to need to be patience there. And I love what the Jaguars are doing. They're giving him the opportunity to show what he could do on both sides of the ball while emphasizing one maybe more than the other and having a higher level of expectation on one side of the ball than the other. Instead of saying, hey, we expect you to be great at both, they understand that time on task will dictate where he's going to be best.
What are your expectations for Justin Fields with the Jets this year?
The run game. While he's working on his passing, look, there's some quarterbacks they come into our league as runners and they have to improve his passes. There are some who come in who are better passers And then they end up developing their ability to elude the pass rush, and maybe they hurt you in the run game. Joe Burrow is that kind of guy, right? Pat Mahomes can hurt you with his legs, but they came in as good passers and adapted with what they're doing with their legs. Clearly, like Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields is one of those guys that came in as a runner. We've seen Lamar and Josh Allen, who are really good runners, improve as passers since they can be done. But you still buy into the things that he does naturally well. And I think Aaron Glenn, coming over from Detroit, where you saw a strong running game with dual backs, right, and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, you have that with the New York Jets. They have 2 or 3 runners that I think are really good. But when you think about what Justin Fields gives you with the RPO game, play action pass, I think they can leverage their run game to set up their ability to throw it in a much easier fashion, because people are going to have to crowd the box on them and give them single coverage on the outside. So when they do call the pass plays, it should be easier looks, less complicated coverages, and everything will be clearly defined because of the run action. So he should be able to operate at a higher level, providing the run game is very productive.
Awesome. Well, Solomon, we appreciate you joining us here today, and good luck. Have fun at the training camps over the next couple of days, and hopefully we get to talk to you here soon again.
All right, you guys keep up the good work. Thanks for having me.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thanks. There he goes. Again, you can catch Solomon Wilcots on the Sirius XM NFL Radio Training Camp Tour. That is tomorrow with Anthony Herron. They're going over to Indianapolis Colts camp from 8 a.m. until 10 a.m. Eastern. And then on Wednesday, like I said, he gets to go and check out the Cincinnati Bengals with Dave Lapham from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern on NFL Radio Channel 88 and on the Sirius XM app. The Bengals. That would be fun. Should we get out to a training camp?
Hell yeah.
Not watching the Mets anymore, so you have time.
Yeah, it can't be much worse. Unless we're looking at Justin Fields' stats. But again, who cares about that stuff?
What are you talking about?
Oh, like all the reports last week about that. Like, who cares? It's practice. Like, it doesn't matter. They're always working on things.
Hey,
like,
he didn't look bad over the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean small sample size, but
look, here's the thing. We already know this. Like, he's gonna run. He's going to run a lot. I think we went over the Vegas odds last week. I think it was like 650.5 rushing yards. 50 rushing yards per game is the average in his career. So you know what you're going to get from him for fantasy purposes. It might not look great from an NFL perspective, but like all the stats and reports last week just don't mean much.
Let's get into the water cooler then. Let's talk more about some overreactions from the preseason games, some of the news and notes that you need to know here in the water cooler. Again, fantasylife.com. That's where you can go and sign up for our newsletter. So you're going to get all this information every single day in your inbox, 7 days a week, 100% free. And again, we're here to help you guys throughout your drafts. Any questions that you have, make sure to call in 888-963-2682, or you can press the new call-in button on the Sirius XM app. And you can find us over there on X at Valenzuela17, at Adam Ronis, and you can send us questions there if you're unable to call in today. We are here to help you. So, and takeaways from preseason. Again, we talked about this at the top of the hour. We don't necessarily want to overreact, but it feels like maybe some breadcrumbs, Adam, that's going to lead us to some kind of decision for what teams are going to look like once the season starts. I do want to, we mentioned Jacksonville. I asked Solomon about Travis Hunter and what he looked like, but Travis Etienne did get the start for the Jaguars, played 100% of the Jaguars offensive snaps on the first drive. Again, a very small sample here, but this is one of those backfields where we've been saying, who's going to step up? If there's one guy that we want to take from this backfield, maybe it's none, but between Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, Bashaw Tootin, Etienne did play 100% of the snaps with Lawrence. He had 67% of the attempts, 14% target share. And it's important to remember, again, this is a one drive sample. So not much we can take away from it, but when we're talking about a potential rotation, this might still be one of these things where you've drafted and you've said you've taken a good amount of Travis Etienne, or between all of them, that's the one that you have the most of. And it feels like maybe that's the path that we're looking at here this year.
Well, I wasn't so sure last week and the last couple of weeks with the reports, but yeah, I've had Etienne as the guy. to take highest. Then you were hearing reports, oh, Tank Bixby looks great. And then, oh, it's going to be a 4-headed backfield. They're going to use all 4. So we always know come game time. But again, you can't look at this and say, oh, yep, Etienne's the guy. It confirms my prior. And then go at other games like, well, it's only the preseason. So I still think that it could be multiple guys here, but it seems that Etienne would be the pass catching back. And look, there's
Yeah.
going to be value in this backfield. If you expect this offense to pop because Liam Cohen is there and he can do what he did in Tampa Bay and translate it to Jacksonville, then there's going to be value in this backfield. So Bigsby has been moving up draft boards, but it was a good sign at least for Etienne that he
Yeah.
played all those snaps on the first drive.
Absolutely. I think next part here that I want to make sure we talk about is Breece Hall. If we're continuing on with some of the running back questions, and that's been it's been weird with Breece Hall this off season as well, where it's like, yeah, he's going to be the guy, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, actually, this is going to be a 3-headed monster and some kind of rotation, and maybe it's not something that we want to mess around with. But for Breece Hall over the weekend, he had 50% of the snap. He had a 50% snap share, 75% attempt share. 33% though route participation was lower than what we've seen before. So we know that he was able to kind of dominate with the opportunities that he was given on the field, but Allen was still out there, Isaiah Davis as well. They continued until halftime. So for me, I'm looking at this and thinking, do I need to bump Breece Hall down my rankings a little bit? Played again 50% of the Jets' first team snaps, but what do you think, Adam? Like at the end of the day, we don't want a rotation here, and we're for the price that he's at right now. That could be one of the guys that is a bust for you if he does not come through.
Yeah, it's tough to know exactly what to take away. Again, it's just a preseason game. It's a new coaching staff. They probably want to see a little bit of everyone, but I could see moving him down a few spots and maybe he's close to some other running backs and you go, you know what, I feel better about them. Glenn did mention this when he first took over, and we've heard a lot of positive reports about Braylon Allen. He had that nice run that's circulating through social media, but it was wide open. I think even
Yeah.
me and you might have been able to pick up 5, 6 yards on that because there was no one near him. So the more important is if the Jets offensive line is going to play like that, that's really beneficial. But we also know this is going to be more than likely the most run heavy team in the NFL. So there will be opportunities there. But yeah, if you did draft Breece Hall, this is not what you want to see. But again, it's just one preseason
Yeah.
game. It's a new coaching staff. They probably want to see a little bit of what everyone has now. At the same time, this was also a coaching regime that used 2 backs in Detroit with Montgomery and Gibbs. So maybe it's Hall and Allen, Davis mixed in a little bit, but yeah, certainly not what you want to see if you were on Breece Hall or have drafted Breece Hall already.
I think, obviously future preseason games are going to give us a clearer picture of what this rotation is ultimately going to look like. That has been said on this show before, so we have to wait and for a couple more weeks here. And they were rotating backs like every 1 or 2 plays. That's not necessarily going to be the rotation once the regular season hits.
Right.
We saw this with Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery, like you just mentioned, before they kind of settled into that regular season rotation that we saw with Glenn over there. But it's just one of those things where, like you said, depending on where you look at drafts as well, that's where you have to be really careful with Breece Hall. Like if you're excited about him, it's very different. But Breece Hall, to pay off his ADP, he's going like RB 14 across most boards except for, man, ESPN going pick 53. So you can get Breece Hall late, but usually he's going around pick 30, 35. Adam, is what I want to say. And again, I've taken him this season, even though we've heard the buzzwords, rotation, three-man committee, all this stuff. But again, what you're seeing right now, future preseason games, the ones toward the end, right in the middle, are probably going to tell us a little bit more. And hopefully in some of those, post-game interviews, we just see it. And same with training camp. So it's tough. I'm not necessarily out on Hall though. I'll say that. I'll continue to draft him and be okay with it.
Yeah, I don't want to see him out on him either. There might be a couple running backs that I had below him that I might move up over him now just because of the potential question marks here. And Braylon Allen still, from what I've seen, has remained a good bargain.
For sure. I've moved him up a lot, and even sometimes when I look at him at my rankings, I'm like, maybe I need to. He's going to be not only now we've talked about him before as a premier handcuff, but he could have standalone value that I don't think people were expecting before, and I don't think his ADP reflects that right now either. So
No,
he
it
could
doesn't.
get more expensive as the
It
weeks go
is going. He's definitely going to move up. There's no doubt about it, especially as all of this circulates around and people start consuming it. They're going to be like, oh, okay, so that means Braylon Allen's going to be more involved. I got to move him up. So you will absolutely see him as one of the risers over the next week.
He's going pick 150 plus
Yeah.
in most. And again, I get it because when you talk about handcuffs, premier handcuffs, maybe he wasn't always in that conversation, but Braylon Allen does have potential to have standalone value this season. From what they've shown us a little bit and in the quotes, he needs to, we're going to see it move. He's not going to stay in the 150s.
No,
It'll be
he's
us.
not.
We'll move
Again,
him.
there's a lot of movement this time of year. There's a lot of movement right even what's crazier. So like now with only 3 preseason games, so the preseason ends a little bit earlier. There's still a lot of movement that lasts a week to 2 weeks right before the start of the
Mhm.
season.
Absolutely. That's why it's good to get into your drafts. Not, get in if you can, get in some a little bit early. I know a lot of people like to stack them and be like, this is my draft weekend, or, they're really close together. But if you're getting closer to the season, you could get some good value right now, especially. So the Beat Adam Ronis League is tonight. You should tweet that back out. You said it's not full yet.
Yeah, I had tweeted
We'll
this
tweet it.
morning. I'll tweet it again.
Tweet it again at Adam Ronis over there on X, and you can let us know if you join it here. Let's do one phone call before we continue on. I see John in Myrtle Beach. What do you got for us, John? Hey, John, you got us?
Hello.
Hey,
Yeah.
John.
How you doing,
How's it
Kendall?
going?
Adam, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What do you
Very
got
good.
for us?
So I have a keeper question for you guys. I got the 8th pick in the 10-team PPR league. I can keep Neighbors in the 4th, Bowers in the 7th, or Tyron Williams in the 12th.
Okay, I like that. Because 10 team, you could get some good value on 10 teams here, Adam. 8th pick, you've got Neighbors in the 4th, Bowers in the 7th, Kyron Williams in the 12th. What should John do? Who should he
Okay,
keep?
so I'm assuming there's one keeper here because I was gonna
Yeah.
say maybe you can get Neighbors at 8, but do I really want to risk it? Because depending on what the other keepers are, he could be gone. I'm
In
just
10
gonna.
team, 10 team though, I don't know. I think he could potentially be there, but anyway.
So I'm just gonna take Neighbors in the 4th because this is a guy that is gonna be near the leaders in targets in the NFL, and Russell Wilson can deliver that moon ball. And even if Wilson loses his job, whether it's Winston or Jaxson Dart, who looked good in the preseason. I mean, Neighbors did it last year with like 4 different quarterbacks, including Tommy Cutlets. So
Hey.
I'm gonna go with Malik Neighbors here. Are you? I feel like you might
I
disagree. You going Bowers?
Listen, if you're willing to risk it, because with a 10 team league, he's going pick 8 in most across all ADPs, but
Yeah, that's what I was
we have to
thinking
we have
initially.
to know though that John has to know that that would be a risk. And if you don't, if your receivers aren't strong enough to potentially lose Neighbors, it's probably not a risk. And thinking if it was my team, it's probably not a risk that I'm willing to take. But if you are a risk taker, or other keepers that might be there, like he does go pick 8 in ADPs, and it's a 10 team league. So I wouldn't do it though. Now that I'm talking through it, it's too scary. I would keep Neighbors in the 4th. My next one was going to be Bowers though
Yeah.
in the 7th. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the keeper conundrum where people just get so consumed by value. Oh, this guy in the 12th, this guy in the 7th. Sometimes, I mean, Neighbors is a value in round 4. I mean, he's pretty much going first round in almost every draft. So just take that guy that's going to get, 170, 180 targets. If he scores more touchdowns, then that's it. He was really good last year, even with the lack of touchdowns, but the volume is insane, and he's so
We have him
talented.
projected for. It always makes me laugh when I look at this. I don't know why I'm surprised every time, but 162 targets.
No, it shouldn't be. I think he had 170
I know.
last year,
No,
right?
I
And he
know, but
missed
it
2
always makes me
games.
it always makes me laugh. I'm just like, geez, 162 targets, 9 touchdowns, 9 receiving touchdowns this season. So Yeah, I'm with you. Neighbors in the fourth sounds good. Thanks for calling in, John. Appreciate it. Again, the phone number is 888-963-2682, or you can send us a message over there on X, on Twitter, at KValenzuela17, at Adam Ronis. We are going to continue on the all-undervalued team. I saw a couple articles from like this over the weekend. I wanted to do our undervalued team, guys that are going way too late, who we think cannot not only outperform their ADPs, but guys you need to be looking at because they've been overlooked. We're going to go through those names here coming up next. We're going through the all undervalued team in fantasy football. You know what we like to do, Adam. We obviously like to take, the guys that we hope are going to be league winners, but sometimes because of that or because of just recency bias of over the past couple of seasons, sometimes people get a little bit of blinders on and they say, I'm not going to take this guy because of, X, Y, and Z. So I wanted to go through guys that we think right now are on the all undervalued team and if we would take them based on their ADP or based on expectations that we have for them heading into the 2025 season. As always, make sure you all go to fantasylife.com. Use that code SXM20, gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 Fantasy Life Plus subscription because we're talking through ADPs right now. We always have this ADP tool up for us during the show, and you can get that tool and so many more at fantasylife.com. So let me start with your guy here, actually, because Dak Prescott feels like one that we always mention. We don't necessarily dive in deep, and we need to do that right here because Dak Prescott's ADP, it shows that people maybe still believe in him, but it kind of just depends on who you're talking to. So right now in underdog drafts, he's going in the 9th round, so that puts him around Brock Purdy, Justin Fields, Dak Prescott. He has risen up draft boards just a little bit from when the offseason started. But what are your expectations? People seem to always write him off. He's going pick 117 ESPN, 120 on Sleeper. If you're looking at RT Sports, he's going 131. Is he someone that, I don't know if targeting is the right word, but if he falls to you in drafts, are you okay walking away with him as your first quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd prefer those running quarterbacks, but I have no problem because we've seen him have success 36 and 37 touchdown passes in 2 of the last 3 years, and this team's going to pass a lot.
Yeah.
So, George Pickens' addition is massive. So, yeah, I don't mind having him as my QB1 if I wait. Like, there's such a tier of quarterbacks that are really close together that I'm fine with a lot of them. And it just comes down, I guess, to when do I decide to jump in and take one or what does the board leave me? Like if I'm picking top 3 or back 3, okay, what quarterback is going to make it back to me in that range that I like? And typically might pair him with someone else too.
Yeah, I haven't taken him. Let me just say that. I'm
You're a
not
hater. I get
opposed
it.
to it. I'm not a hater. I'm trying not to be a hater. I just looked at my exposure though, and I can't say that I'm open to it because I am open to it. It just hasn't happened for me in drafts where I think in that range too, a lot of the time I'm looking elsewhere. Usually I've taken a good amount of Evan Engram in that range. Tyler Warren is right there as well. And we've really liked drafting Tyler Warren. I have especially. So it's one of those things where I'm open to it, but his ADP is that it's very obvious that I think the Athletic put out a great article, but it's like people hold a grudge at him. It feels always like that with Dak Prescott.
Oh, they do. I mean,
Can't get over it.
it's with a lot of players. I mean,
Yeah.
it's human nature. And again, to be successful in fantasy, you have to forget about that, especially if they are in a good situation. And right now, Dak is, especially if you think the defense won't be as good either. We talked about the Bengals in shootouts. That could be the case for Dallas, where they're going to have to put up points in. The running game doesn't look like it's going to be great. We were just talking during the break about how they're saying Javonte Williams is getting a lot of the run with the first team. Well, yeah, Miles Sanders and Jayden Blue are hurt, so they're not practicing right now. We were seeing Blue mixed in with the ones over the last week. So either way, it doesn't look like it's going to be a strong running game. And if Blue is the guy that is featured a little bit more, his strength is in the passing game and his explosive ability. So that's going to help Dak. And again, Pickens is just a big addition. You got Ferguson, you got Lamb. So Dak has shown. We all want these running quarterbacks. I understand that. And Dak is not gonna run like he did early in his career. I think the first 3 years in the league, he had 6 rushing touchdowns in each season,
Yep.
but he's older. He's coming off the hamstring injury, so he's not gonna do much on the ground. But he has shown that he has the ability to attempt 600 passes and throw 35 touchdown passes. And oftentimes, he has moved up a little. He's like a borderline
has.
QB1. It depends.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird. In some drafts, you see him go like QB9. Other drafts will go QB14. But I think a lot of quarterbacks in that range, it's the same thing. Like, it depends on who you're drafting with and what their preference is, because you'll see Justin Fields go 7th quarterback off the board, and then sometimes the 14th. And Caleb Williams, same thing. Kyler Murray, like all of those quarterbacks in that similar range, you see a wide range of where they're being drafted. So it really depends on who you're in the draft with and who they prefer.
Do you think Chris Olave is being undervalued right now, or depending on where he goes, are you okay with it? This is someone that, again, this is a polarizing player, right, going into this season, because it's not only the concussions, which are, something that people are worried about, but it's, the overall offense as a whole. Tyler Shuck, if he's the QB1 going into it, he has, depending on where you draft, he's all over the place. Pick 65 on Underdog compared to we can go anywhere. 103 on ESPN, 105 on CBS. He's picked 70 in Sleeper, 85 on Yahoo. Again, Chris Olave all over the place. But and it's going to be you and I as well. People are going to have a hard time when it comes to him, and if they should draft him, if he's being undervalued, if we should be too worried about the offense as a whole and the concussions as well. What do you think with Chris Olave?
I do think he can have a good season because he's going to get a lot of targets. The team's going to be playing from behind. And yes, the quarterback situation is a bit of an issue, but it's baked into the price. We've seen Olave go in the 2nd round of drafts last year. With that said, I thought I would have more, and I really don't. I think it's just because I either have a lot of receivers already when he's on the board, or he's just not making it to me, because it's not like I have him ranked crazy low. I think I have him in the 30 to 35 area. So I guess that's right at ADP, though. So maybe that's why. But he is in a range where there's some really intriguing receivers. So I could see other people going, yeah, I feel safer about this guy. This guy's in a better offense. So I think that's what's happening, is just people feel better about receivers in that range having better quarterback play, a better offense. So that's probably why.
I say the same thing, where again, I'm open to it, but then I look at the exposure that I have, and I've taken him one time. And it's probably because I look at that and I say, is this risky? Can he? But Chris Olave has the profile to completely outperform that ADP, because we've seen him do it before. He has the talent. And like I said, he offers the wide receiver 2 upside. So it's really, to me, yes, the concussions, we have to be careful about it, but there's no way we can, there's no way we can track that, Adam. There's no way that we can say, hey, he has this history of, it's ankle injuries or all this other stuff. So it's one of those things where you actually just have to hope that they can put up 215, 220 passing yards per game. And if they're able to do that, and Chris Olave stays healthy, then there's this case where we look back in, mid-December, and we say, yeah, we should have seen this coming. Chris Olave has the chance.
We could also see the other side and go, you know what? This offense is just going to be brutal, hands off. And that's the approach I think a lot of people are taking.
At pick 103, though, would you not? At 103 on ESPN, I'd say, you know what? At that point, you have at least three solid receivers on your team there.
Yeah, but are you drafting on ESPN this year? I know I'm not.
I have one, but it's way later. Yeah, it's way later.
Boy, I want to see the results of that draft. Like, who do they have so high that everyone we talk about is buried? Like, what the hell? Like, who is going early on this site?
Maybe it's a prank.
Wait, they have CeeDee Lamb at 7?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Neighbors at 12?
Everyone go draft on ESPN.
Thomas 19. Oh, I got to get my holy gun ESPN.
That's what I'm saying.
This is insane.
Chris Olave is just one of those. Where did I say he was going? They've got
one. I'm looking at others, so I went away. I'm just amazed by this.
It's just I think Rashid. Oh no, here it is. Chris Olave. Yeah, it's one of those things where
he's 103 on ESPN.
103.
Ricky Pearsall's 122.
I think we should get a draft going over there.
The thing
Don't you?
is, yeah, but wouldn't I would probably
It's
still
fun.
draft the same. That's the problem.
So he's going around, Chris Olave is going around Jawan Jennings, Jordan Addison, Debo Samuel.
Yeah,
Between those guys.
I would take him over those guys. Yeah.
Yes. Chris Godwin?
I think I would take him over Chris Godwin right
too.
now.
Where I stop is Matthew Golden's going pick 101. I think we would both take Matthew Golden, Roma Dunze, Ted McMillan ahead of him. Ted McMillan's going pick 86, by the way.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Someone sent us a screenshot of their ESPN draft.
See, this is the problem though. So say you were really doing a draft on ESPN, competing against some people you respect and know their stuff. Like you can't wait. Like that's the challenge. Where would you take Ted McMillan? Do you just go with your rankings and go, "Hey, I'm taking him in round 4. I don't care what the ADP is." That's always the challenge when you're playing on these sites.
Well, that's the challenge too, because then you look and you say, I could wait and get good value here at running back or whatever else if they
Right,
have
but
them all the
then-
way down the ADP board.
But then someone else is in
yeah,
the
they could look
room
and say the same thing.
and they go, "All right, well, I'm taking him now." So that's always the challenge. I would
I'm
I
with
would
you.
fear losing. I would see I would just go with my rankings and I wouldn't care about the ADP. But for
Yeah.
those that are in home leagues that play on ESPN, we're trying to help you. Yeah, because you're going to see our rankings and be like, "Wow, they're way higher." Yeah, because
Mhm.
those ADPs are wrong.
It's more, yeah, we'd say be more aggressive at that point.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Look, you can't say, "Oh, he's 86. I'm going to wait." No, because there's probably a few other people in the room. And again, you guys know your league better. Maybe you
Yeah.
draft with you're the only one that pays attention, and everyone else is just casual about it, and that's why you win every year.
That's why they're winning. They're listening to us and they're playing on, they get ESPN in their home leagues and they're like, yes, take advantage. Hey, take advantage of those ADPs because that's huge. That's a huge advantage, like we said. So we're going to continue on here. I want to talk through running backs because we've mentioned, what some of the projections look like. I want to talk about running backs projected for 50 plus targets and what that means for fantasy football, why we want to target some of these guys. We're going to give you those names here coming up next. Let's be real. You're here to win a fantasy championship. And you know what? You're not going to win playing it safe because you've got to go hard. And no one understands that better than Mike's Hard Lemonade because to succeed in fantasy, sometimes you guys know you have to take bold risks. You have to reach for that rookie. You have to make a blockbuster trade, or you have to spend all of your fab on a breakout player. And your league mates might roast you in the group chat, but that does not matter because legends do not play scared. They go hard, just like Mike's Hard Lemonade. So crack open a cold Mike's, kick back for a second, and remember, nobody makes lemonade like Mike's. Find Mike's nearest you at www.mikeshard.com. Mike's is hard, so is prison. Don't drive drunk. Premium malt beverage with flavors, all registered trademarks used under license by Mike's Hard Lemonade Co., Chicago, Illinois. Shout out to everyone hanging out with us right here. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis. We've got the best listeners, and the best listeners deserve a promo code. SXM20 gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus Tier 1 or Tier 2 subscription. So make sure you head over to the website. Also, check out guillotineleagues.com. We had a couple of segments here today talking about the difference in ADP between, guillotine leagues and regular traditional fantasy football. But if you haven't played in a guillotine league yet, make sure you go over to guillotineleagues.com, sign up. It is a fun, fresh, new way to play fantasy football and go draft on, I don't know, Adam, I think we need an ESPN league. Chris sent us his screenshot from an ESPN draft. A loaded draft. Said, please grade or critique my team. We can't because you've got great players on this team. You got Mahomes, Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase, and Brian Thomas Jr. on the same team is unheard of. That will never
Yeah.
happen ever.
Only in an auction.
Travis
That's
Kelce's
it.
still solid. Caleb Johnson in the flex. And not only do you have Patrick Mahomes, but you got Justin Fields as your second quarterback.
RJ Harvey.
RJ Harvey on the bench, by
Kyler
the way.
Warren.
RJ Harvey on the bench. And question marks, right? You've got Brandon Ayuk in the IR spot. Rashad White is questionable right now with a groin injury. Looks like they said, though, he is more day-to-day.
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs still has the questionable tag on him, but I think he's supposed to be good to go.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been full out practicing.
Yeah, he's come back quicker than I anticipated. I thought he was going to be completely off my draft board, but I am open to taking him now.
Yeah, hey, you've heard me talk about him. I've taken him a good amount because I always want, sometimes in the past I've just not done well enough with correlating who, if I believe that one quarterback is going to step up and do better, how can I make sure that how can we make sure that he's doing that? It's probably going to be through the air and on the ground. So Stephon Diggs, like I didn't have enough Terry McLaurin last season. For as much as we talked about Jaden Daniels, I needed to look at myself and say, okay, we know he's going to bring it on the ground, but what if he is able to rip it through the air? And Terry McLaurin finished with the second most touchdowns. So it's one of those things where I do believe that Drake London as well, but Drake May is going to step up and have a good season. And around 9 price tag for Stephon Diggs. I know he's in the post prime era, and he's not this ascending option, but I still really like him this season.
Yeah,
I'm
he
okay with it.
doesn't fit the profile for a player I tend to draft, right? A 31-year-old turning 32 during the season, coming off a torn ACL, going to a new team. It's like, no, but when you look at it, because I do believe in Drake May, he's going to be a real he's going to help Drake May. He's that
Yeah.
veteran that can run good routes. He's looked good in all the video we have seen. And yeah, maybe not a lot of touchdowns, but in a PPR league, he can pile up the reception. So again, I'm not saying he's a target for me, but I am more open to taking him uh, where he is going if I need a receiver at that point.
Pick 110 on CBS, 99 on ESPN. Like I said, I think a lot of the time, he's the most expensive on Underdog. I believe it's pick 65 when I'm
Yeah,
looking at
that's
it right
too
now.
expensive, but
Too
that's the
expensive?
nature of underdog
But when
where
you're in other
receivers
leagues
pushed up.
though, and you see, the ADP, the risk factor built into the ADP, sometimes, people look at it and say, it's still too expensive. But for me, at pick like I said, 110, you could have solid receivers ahead of him. And that's why, it's important to especially keep up on the trends at him, because I didn't know that ESPN leagues had a questionable tag on him right now. And people might see that in your drafts too, depending on where you are, and say, well, if he's already questionable, I don't necessarily want to go after him. But that's why it's important. You guys are listening to us, and but keeping up with all the news too of guys and where they're at with their progression through their injuries and their rehabs is key.
Yeah, the news is so important. Even during your draft, you have to have something up to be alert, especially if you're drafting when there are preseason games on, like this weekend and the following weekend. Actually, now come to think of it, I think our
What?
GST draft is going to be going on with some
Oh,
preseason games going on,
great.
right?
I
Yeah, because
think
that's the
so,
last week
because
of
it's next
preseason.
weekend.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's so that we're drafting 11 a.m. Well, yeah, there's games at noon and 1. So there will be some
11
preseason action
a.m.
going on.
Eastern.
The draft for GST is 11 a.m. Eastern. Yeah.
Wow.
It was
I
the
gotta get
same
some.
last year.
No, I know. I got to get some brunch going
You're
or
up early
something.
anyway.
I know, but I'm gonna have to be locked in and ready to go. I knew that. I read all the rules that you send out and all the emails and all. I knew that. I really did. I promise. We're gonna continue on. We are gonna go through some of these running backs projected for 50 plus targets, what it means for fantasy football, and why you want to target these guys for fantasy going into 2025 as well. We've got names for you coming up next. As always, you guys are the best listening to us right here. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you on this Monday. Make sure to keep it locked right here, though. You've got RotoWire Fantasy Sports today coming up next. We wanted to just mention, Adam, running backs projected for 50 plus targets, why they're so important in fantasy, because we know that the connection between obviously touchdowns and fantasy points is strong. But for running backs, another really big link is between targets and fantasy scoring. So when we look at this, I just wanted to mention one, or no, let me get two for sure. But Austin Ekeler, we haven't talked about him much. Not necessarily probably someone we're saying you have to target, because you've got Brian Robinson over there. We've talked about Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt as a sleeper on this team, and so again, not a sexy name going off the board. Usually is RB 44, but projected for 54 targets. We know he's a little bit past the prime age because he's 30 years old. But when we talk about maybe an efficient change of pace producer, you saw 4.8 yards per carry from him last season, 8.9 yards per target. Again, not a sexy name, Adam, but whenever we see 50 plus targets projected, someone we got to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's more like of a bye week fill-in. I do think injuries are a factor too. Played 12 games last year, 14 the year before. So Health is a factor, and again, we could see Krosky Merritt play a bigger role.
Yeah, he's flexible. Not a bye week fill-in though is DeAndre Swift. 50 projected for 53 targets. Again, his ADP right now RB 23. I still think that DeAndre Swift can really outperform this ADP right now. I know we've talked about if this is a thunder and lightning situation on this team, maybe Roshan Johnson steps up. We've talked about Kyle Monungai, but still, I just think DeAndre Swift's price this whole offseason has not been correct, and I've been making sure to scoop him up in a lot of my drafts.
Yeah, he's been a nice value. It's like people either are dismissing him, forgot about him, but if you have confidence in this Bears offense that Ben Johnson can get it going, Swift is going to play a big role in that.
Yeah, I like it. And again, I still like, Roshan Johnson if I don't get him, if this really is like I said, not 1A, 1B, but maybe more of a Thunder Lightning. Kyle Monungai is also one that I've been getting as well. And then I know we talked about Breece Hall today, but still projected for 57 targets, which is big. ADP right now is RB 14. That's pretty much in line. I've got him RB 15, but I might move him today, Adam. I'm unsure. I don't want to
Yeah.
overreact though to what I saw.
Yeah, I think RB15 is fair. Either way, even if it is others involved, they're going to just have such massive volume running the football. They're not going to pass a lot. It's just not going to happen with Fields at quarterback. They are going to run, and run more.
He was number 3 at the position, 76 targets last season. Year before that, number 1 with 95. We'll see what happens there. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us here today. Make sure you use that promo code SXM20, gets you 20% off at fantasylife.com. We'll see you same time here tomorrow.